So, welcome back, class. Today we are going to continue our previous lecture, part 1, about defining your own class. So, in the previous lecture video, we stopped at the using the word this in your programming. So we are going to continue on that. How can we use this to call a method in a class? So in this fraction class, you see that we have F1, F2, and F3 here. So for the calculation that are going to be done by F3 here, it is calling F1 dot add F2. So how can this line of code get the information from F1 and F2? So now we're going to let's go here. So F1 dot add F2, right? As been mentioned in this previous. So what are we going to understand here? So when you see F1, so what's the information included in F1? What information included in F1 is fraction. The numerator must be 1 and denominator is 2. So if you put F1 dot this, it will automatically call the value that been stored in F1. So let's like it is stated here, because F1 is the receiving object, so we are calling F1's method. So the reserved word this is referring to F1. So now is for F2. So F2 dot add F1. So this time we are calling F2 method. So the reserved word this is referring to F2. So you can see here F2 information is numerator 3 and denominator 4. So in the calculation, it will automatically use this number to do the calculation. Now moving on to arguments and parameter. As you know, at the beginning of this chapter in the previous lecture slide, I already mentioned when we are going to define a class, you must have the parameter and then you must have the arguments. Okay, now we are going to understand what is arguments and what is parameter. So an argument is a value that we pass to a method. Okay, it's a value. Remember that. And a parameter is a placeholder in the call method to hold the value of the pass argument. Okay, argument is a value. Parameter is the placeholder that are going to hold the value and are going to pass the argument, which is the value. Okay, so you must remember that. So argument is a value. So it can be numbers, it can be strings. Okay, it must be a value. So like in this example, this class sample. Here you have account act equal to new account. account act dot add 400. So the action here is we are going to do additional to 400 is the argument to the account. Okay, and look at the second box in the right. Where are we going to define the parameter? Okay, public void add double amt. Amt here, amt here is the amount. So the parameter here is the double amount. So this parameter normally will hold the value. Okay, so let's move on. So how are we going to match arguments and parameters? Okay, the number of arguments and the parameters must be the same. You have to remember that. It must be the same. Okay, and then the match pair must be assignment compatible. Okay, you cannot pass a double argument to an integer parameter. Okay, so for example, you define the uh, string. Okay, you define string, but suddenly your argument, which is the value, a number. So no, you can't. If you want the value, which is the argument, if you want your argument to be number, you have to define integer in your parameter. If you want your argument to be text, you have to define string in your parameter. So it must always be compatible with each other. You have to assure that. And then arguments and parameters are paired from left to right. Okay, let's look at the example in these boxes. Okay, here demo dot compute ik20. Okay, what is ik20? I is integer I. What is k? K is integer j. What is x? X is double. What is 20? 20 is double x. So when you are trying to allocate the value of each argument, you will refer to your class that contain the information. So for example here, for the memory allocation here, for example, if we define I as 5, so I will begin the value with 5. If we define k as 14, so integer j here will be 14. If you define the x is 20, so it will be 20. So that is how it works. So you have to make sure each value is correct, have a correct parameter. Okay. So this class actually try to do a simple calculation. So when we are passing objects to a method, we have to remember. So as we can pass integer and double values, we can also pass an object to a method. Okay, so when we want to pass an object, we are actually pass the reference, which is the address of an object. So it means a duplicate of an object is not created in the call method. Okay, you will understand further when we look at the example in the next slide. So, here we are trying to pass student object. Okay, we have a class library card. So, the class library card here have student information. Okay, so we will have two information here, student and library card. So, first, the student. The student information will have name and email. Okay, so for an object, which is the content of a variable, is an address, and then this address is passed to the method. Okay, so here the student information, which is the name and email, can be retrieved by the library card class, because the library card class are calling student in its parameter. So the parameter student here, it call the owner equal to student that carry the student information, which is the student's name and student's email address. So how are we going to do object sharing? So here we have the library card information and then the student information. Okay, in this library card we have card 1 and card 2, and then we are going to assign a new student with new information, such as the student name, which is John Java here, and then the student email jj@javauniv.edu. So now the card 1 will create a new library card for this specific student, and card 2 also will create another new card. If you notice here, we pass the same student object to card 1 and card 2. Okay, the same object with information. So the same student is the owner of the second card too. So this student will have two library cards. So since we are actually passing a reference to the same object, it results in the owner of two library card objects pointing to the same student object. So since that, we have to return an object from the method. So as we can return a primitive data value from a method, we can return an object from a method also. How to do that? So we return an object from a method. We actually return a reference of an object. So this means that we are not returning a copy of an object, but only the reference of this object. So we already know how to return an object from a method, because we have been returning a string from a method, right, in the previous slide. And a string is an object. So an instance of a string class. So this is the example. So however, string objects are treated much like primitive data. So we will explore a little bit deeper into this topic. So here is the sample of how object returning method works. So here we have a public fraction simplify. So the fraction here return type indicates the class of an object. We're returning from the method. So what we return, so whatever information that we have in this class will be returned through simp. As you see in the code here, return simp. So it will return an instances of the fraction class. So the information such as integer number, integer denominator, integer GCD will be used in the simp new fraction by taking the number of integer that have been defined in this class, and then it will return simp. It will return the simp value. So how can we call the simp value, the simplify from the previous slides? So this is how we're gonna do it. So as you know here, the public fraction class, it will return the simp value. So if it needed to be used in another class, like here, f2 equal to f1 dot simplify. So what are the value of simplify here? The value of simplify here, actually we will get from the simp value that we get from the fraction class. So f1 dot simplify will get the value from the fraction class. So again, another example. If we want to do another calculation, f2 equal to f1 dot simplify. Okay, where we get the value of simplify here? We get from the return simp on the right side. So we call here f1 dot simplify simp that has all the information of numerator and denominator will pass the value to f1, and then we will get the value of f2. And now let's learn about set and get methods. Okay, when implementing a method of a class, we will use sets and gets. How? Because we want to access the class private data members. Okay, we need to use set and get to get those information from private data members. So this simplifies code maintenance and reduces the likelihood of the errors. It also known as setter and getter method. So actually getter and setter, it encapsulates the data member of a class by making them accessible only through public method. So as we learned in the first chapter, encapsulation is the process of what? Process of hiding information details and protecting data and behavior of an object. Okay. So what is the difference between set methods and get methods? So set methods are known as mutator methods. Okay, it assign or alter the values for private data members. And then for get methods, it's known as accessor methods. It actually retrieve the values of the private data members, and it can also control the format of the data that it's trying to return. So for example here, we are going to learn how we use set and get methods. Okay. Okay. In the on the left box, okay, we have the public class car. Okay, so in this public class car, we have information of the car, the model of the car, and then the CC of the car. Okay, so now where is the gather and settle method here? As you can see, it is already written there. Comment the gather method, which is public string get models. It will retrieve the values of the model. Okay, and then set the method, which is assign or alter the values. The public void set model, so it will set the model value for the car. Okay, moving on to the on the right box, which is the another class, which is class car apps. Okay, in this class car apps, we are trying to print out an output by getting the model and then getting the leaders, which is the CC of the car from the public car class model. How can we do that? You can see here. So first we define a new car, and after that we print system out print line my. So you read the object. The object here, what it is? Okay, it is the car. So car dot get model. Get model will call the public class car. It will print out the car model for you, and then plus car dot get leaders. Here we will get the information from the public class car again, which is the public float get leaders. It will return the value for you, so you will get the correct output, which is my proton car displacement is 1.8 liters. Okay, all right. So now moving on to overloaded methods. Okay, what is this overloaded method? Okay, you notice that the differences in the return type alone is not enough to overload the methods. For example, the following declaration is invalid. If you have public double convert integer number or public float convert integer number, this is not valid. When you're declaring your class, you have to make sure it is correct and in a correct order. Okay, so basically overload methods are the methods that have the same name but different parameters. As I mentioned earlier, public double convert integer number. That doesn't work. Double is already number, and then you declare again integer number. So your program will get confused and it will be overloaded. So yes, method can share the same name as long as they have different number of parameter. One. And then second, their parameters are of different data types. And rule number 3, it must return type must be the same. Okay, let's look at the example here. Rule 1, which they have different number of parameters. So public void my method. Okay, the first line, public void my method, integer x and integer y. And then second one, public void my method, integer x. So these two methods have similar name, but they have different number of parameters. The first one have two parameters, which is x and y, and the second one only have one parameters. So, and then going to the rule number 2, which is their parameters are of different data types. So first example we have public void my method double x and public void my method integer x. So they have different kind of data types. The first one is double and second one is integer. So it is fine to have similar name, which is my method. So why multiple constructors can cause overloaded? Okay, give the programmer a flexibility in creating instances. Okay, so if the programmer are able to create or use multiple constructor, it gives them more freedom and flexible to create their instances for their program. So we can also pick one of the several constructor that is suitable. So let's see at the example of overloaded constructor. Here you can see the public vehicle. Public vehicle, and then it has string type, string transmission, string powertrain. Three different parameter with the same data type, which is string. And then this will cause the program to be overloaded. It will not give you an error, but it's just gonna be an overload constructor. It might cause problem if you are running a huge program. So moving on to selection. Okay, so actually selection is about the syntax in Java programming in OOP. Okay, let's see. So now we're going to talk about the syntax of the if statement. Okay, so how are you going to use if statement in object-oriented programming? First, you must have if, and then you have to put the Boolean expression in your bracket, then block, and then in that block you put your statement, else, and then else block. So in this then block and else block, where you include the condition that you want to do with the program. Okay, for example, here the example of simple if statement. All right, so if the test score is less than 70, okay, you will print out a value of you did not pass, else you did pass. Okay, this is an example of a simple if statement. So in if statement, you can use several operators. They call it as relational operators. Okay, so The list shows 6 relational operators for comparing the value. And then the result is a Boolean values. It's either true or false. Okay, that's the only result you can use in if statement. Okay, one very common error when people when students write program, they like to mix up the assignment and equality operators. So we frequently make a mistake of writing, for example, if x equal to 5, when we actually wanted to say if x equal to 5 with a double symbol like stated here. Okay, so if you want to use less than, use that symbol. If you want to use less than or equal to, use this symbol. Okay, make sure to memorize and know how to use this symbol. For example, here test score less than 80 and test score times 2 greater than or equal to 350 and so on. Okay, that's the correct way to use the relational operators. And then moving on to the compound statements. Okay, when compound statement is when there are more than one statement in the end, in the then or the else block. So we put the braces as the illustrated here. So first thing first that you have to remember the rules for writing the then and else block. First, you must remember that left and right braces are necessary to surround the statement if the then or else block contains multiple statements. Okay, so you look here. Okay, in this one block of code, if test score less than 70, so the whole statement here in this first box must be included in one curly bracket. Okay, and then braces are not necessary. Braces here is the curly bracket. Okay, curly brackets are not necessary if the then or else block contains only one statement. So here you must have two set of curly bracket here. If the statement, the then block, else the else block, another curly bracket. So it separates these two blocks. Okay, and the semicolon is not necessary after the right brace. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the style guide. Okay, here are the most common format styles. Okay, in this course we will use style 1. Okay, mainly because this style is more common around programmers and it follows the recommended style guide for Java. So if you prefer style 2, then go ahead, you can use it, whichever style you choose, but be consistent. Okay, because consistent look and feel are very important to make your code readable, especially if you want to get back to your code in future, or you have to make your code readable so easy for me to mark your project. So you can choose style 1 or style 2, but I recommend to use style 2. Okay, so here's the second form of the if statement. So we call this form if then. Okay, notice that if then statement is not necessary because we can write any if then statement using if then else by including no statement in the else block. So for instance, the sample if then statement can be written as if test score greater than or equal to 95, and then the message box shows you are an honor student. Else, so it's showing the results. So in this book, we use if then statement whenever it is appropriate. So to make it like easier for you to understand, let's take a look at the second example. So I'm pretty sure you can understand this. It's very simple. It's just basic if then statement. Just put the Boolean expression and then put the message box in the if statement. So now we're going to see the if else if control. So this is if you have different condition. Okay, so for example, you want to convert the test score and the grade into a programming. So you want to try to print out the grade. Okay, so for example here, if the score is greater than or equal to 90, your grade is A. Else if your score greater than or equal to 80, your grade is B. And so on until the last condition. You put else, your grade is F. And then moving on to the next one, if the nested if statement. So the then and else block of an if statement can contain any valid statement, including other if statements. And if statements containing another if statement is called a nested if statement. Okay, so let's look in the example here. So we have if statement, right? If else statement. If test score greater than or equal to 70. And then we have another specific condition in this if student age less than 10, you should print you did a great job, else you did pass. Okay, else if the test score less than 70, you print you did not pass. So this is how you use nested if. You put the second if statement in the main if statement before the else statement. Boolean operators. Okay, what is actually Boolean operators? Boolean operators takes Boolean values as it takes Boolean values as it operates and returns the Boolean value. So there are three Boolean operators here, and or not. So and we use the and double and symbol, or doubles like double L symbol, and then not the exclamation mark symbol. So this is an example on how to use the Boolean operator. If temperature is greater than or equal to 65 and distance to destination is less than 2, so system out print line, let's walk. Else system out print line, let's drive. This is the example how you can use the Boolean operators in your programming. And then now the semantic of Boolean operators. Okay, so is in this table is the list of the semantic of 3 Boolean operators. So if it's only for, let's see on the second, third, fourth, and fifth column of this table. Okay, the first second column, P and Q, is the actual value. False, P false, Q false. If P and Q, because P and Q both false, P and Q will also be false. If P or Q, it will be false. If it's not P, remember the exclamation mark is not P, not P. So what is P here? P is false, not P is true. Okay, let's look at the second row. Okay, the P value in the second row is false. The Q value in the second row is true. So P and Q, it will be false. So, because if you compare P and Q, if you compare true and false, it will be false. Okay, but if you say P or Q, it will be true. And then let's see at the last column. The last column, second row, it shows here not P. Okay, what is P here? P here is false, right? So not P is true. And so on with the third and the fourth row. It's the same thing. Okay. So basically, this is just the operator precedence rule. Okay. So this table shows the order of operator evaluation. So don't memorize this table. I just want you to understand it. Instead of memorizing this table, it is more convenient and the code more readable if you use the parentheses. So for example, the group here, let's see here, is the equality operators. So the equality operators is the double equal value or the exclamation mark and equal value. The double equal meaning is equal to, and then the second one is not equal to, and so on. You just need to understand, and then when you start using it in your code, there is no need to memorize. You will automatically understand and know when to use it. Okay, and now comparing objects. So with the primitive data types, we have only one way to compare them. Okay, but with objects, reference data types. So we have two ways to compare them. We can test whether two variables points to the same object by using the equal symbol, or we can test whether two distinct objects have the same content using equals bracket method. Okay, so let's see at the example. So in this example, we use the equal symbol with the objects. Okay, when we use the equality operator, which is the double equal symbol, we can compare the contents of the variable, which is here is string 1 and string 2. Okay, str1 and str2. Okay, so str1 equal to str2 must be true, meaning that the content of these two strings are the same. That means they are pointing to the same object because the content of a reference data type is an address. All right? So, but if there are two distinct objects, okay, two different objects, even the value of the string that holds, even if the value that hold by the string, okay, the string here, str1, str2 is the object, right? Even if the value are the same, the equality testing by the equality operator will always result in false. Okay, so let's see the second example. Okay, the second example is when it only define the first string, which is the str1. Okay, earlier the str1 and str2 were both assigned to Java, new string name, but this one only assigned to str1, which is Java. And then we just do str2 equal to str1, which is referring to Java. So if str1 equal to str2, so we are going to print out the result. So using your logic mind, okay, now str2 and str1 supposed to be what? Supposed to be Java, right? It's referring to the same word, which is Java. So if we think logically, the output should be what? The output should be they are equal. So it is correctly printing a correct output, which is they are equal. Like in the previous slide, it is pointing to it is printing a wrong output, which is they are not equal. So now you know, okay, the differences when you use the equality operator correctly. So now if we're using equals with string, okay, so earlier we used the symbol, right, the equal symbol, the equality operator, okay. Now what if we use the word equals? Okay, what are we trying to do? It's the same thing. We are trying to compare whether these two string object have the same sequence of character. So we use the equal method. So here we have string str1 and we assign to a string named Java, and then string str2 new string Java. So we are trying to, so you see here the string 1 and string 2 are the same, right? Java, both are same. So we want to see, so in our code, it should print out they are equal, right? So we use str1 dot equals bracket str2. We print they are equal, else they are not equal. So the output is correct. The output printed here is they are equal. Now, the semantic of the equality operators, which is the double equal sign. Okay, so we have two cases here. Case A, there are two variables that refer to two different objects. Okay, and then we have case B, which is two variables that refer to the same object. Alright, so we are going to define which one are true and which one are false. Let's see at the case A first. Okay, case A, we define string str1, comma str2. str1 equal to new string Java, str2 equal to new string Java. And then we write str1 equal to str2. So that is false. So how? But it's supposed to be correct, right? Because str1 and str2 both have string Java in a correct order. It's supposed to be true. It's false because the use of the equality operator, double equality operator here. Okay, let's see in the case B. Okay, case B. So we define the same thing again. String1, str1, str2, and then we define str1 value, which is new string Java, and then str2 equal to str1. We did not declare anything for str2 here. Okay, we did not set any new string value to str1 here, but we simply just referring str2 with str1. So when we do the comparison, str1 equal to str2, the answer will be true. So how you going to use this equal? It's based on the case B. Do not use it like case A. Okay. All right. So in creating a string objects, you have to be very clear. All right. So for example here, okay, we have string word1 and word2. Okay, word1 again we assign to new string named Java and word2 as new string named Java, like the previous example. So whenever the new operator is used, there will be a new object. So if you do like this, your code will always be false. Okay, the right way to do this, you can also do like this. String word1, word2, and then you just simply assign word1 to Java and then word2 to Java. So you can see the difference. In the first example here, there will be two objects. One is word1 to the first Java, and then second one is word2 to the another object named Java, the same name. Okay, so in order to use the same name, you just referring to one object. So like how you did in the second example here, word1 equal to Java, word2 equal to Java. So basically here showing that the literal string constants such as Java will always refer to one object. So if you write your code like this, it is correct. So You have to remember that. Do not refer same object to the same name. Okay, so if not, your code will be confused when you are trying to run it. It might not show you any error, but it will be problem. Okay, now is the switch statement. So let's learn how to use switch statement. Okay, this is the example of the switch statements. So the variable here is the what? The grade level. Integer grade level. That is the variable here. And then the grade level here are called as the switch control. Okay. The switch control begins when you write switch column grade level. So this is where your switch statement begins. So the data type for a switch control must be one of the integer data types or character. Okay, it must be only these two. It's either integer or character. Okay, for switch statement, it's kind of similar to the if else if statement earlier that we went through earlier, but it's only written in a different way. When you do the if statement, it's if else if else if else if then else. Here when you use switch statement, it use case. So for example here, case 1, you print go to the gym. Break, that means your code, when you compiling the code, it will break here. When you're running the code, you will break here and then it will exit the switch statements. Okay, or case 2, go to the science auditorium. Case 3, go to Harris Hall. Case 4, go to Bolt Hall. That is how it's like the statement is executed if the grade level is equal to 1. Okay, and then here the statement is executed if the grade level is equal to 4. So here for if statement, you put the condition inside the if statement, right? But the switch statement, you put the condition outside the switch statement. So the condition here is the grade level here. So it is based on the grade level. So if the grade level equal to 1, it run the first case. If the grade level is 2, it runs the second case. If the grade level is 3, it runs the third case, etc. Depends on how many cases you will have. Okay. And this is the common syntax for the switch statements. Okay. So the general syntax of the switch statements. So the case body may contain 0 or more statement. Like I said earlier, it depends on you, how many cases you want to put based on the number of condition. So here the switch, you begin the switch statement with the word switch and then column, the arithmetic expression, okay, and then the case open with curly bracket and don't forget to close with curly bracket, and then in between those curly bracket you put your case. Case 1, what is it? Case 2, what is it? Okay, for example, let's go again to the example here. So what in this switch grade level? So what is the arithmetic expression here? It is the grade level. Grade level is the arithmetic expression. And the case label here is the case number. Case 1, case 2, case 3, case 4. That is the case label. And then the case body here is the system out print line. The code that you include in this case, which is system out print line, go to Harris Hall, blah blah blah, and then semicolon, and then break, semicolon. Okay, that is how you write a switch statements. And now the repetition. Okay, how are we going to use repetition? So repetition is when you are going to use the while statements. So first, you will have while statement. In repetition, you will have while statement, do while statement, you have for statement, and nested for statements. Okay, first we are going to look at the while statements. Okay, to write a while statement, you begin your line of code with the word while, and then the Boolean expression in the bracket, and then include your statements. So here is the example. While. Okay, you have to understand the word while. Okay, while, Boolean expression, number less than or equal to 100. So the condition here, as long as the number is less than 100 or equal to 100, it will keep on repeating the statement non-stop until the number is equal to 101. Then it will stop calculating. So here, while number equal to or less than 100, and then you go inside the statement. The statement here we call the loop body, and then we do the summation. Sum equal to sum plus number, number equal to number plus 1. Okay, for example, here, if we have number 1, okay, sum equal to sum plus number. Okay, so 1 plus 1, 2. So number will be 2 plus 1. So it will keep on increasing the value until the number equal to 101. Then it will exit the loop body. Okay, but you have to understand the loop body may not be executed at all if the number is already bigger or greater than 100. Okay, it will only go through inside this loop body if it meets the condition. All right. Okay, that was while statements. Now it is the do while statement. Okay, so in the do while statement, we begin the statement with do. Okay, do statements while Boolean expression. So first we do the statements. In these statements, in this loop body, we will keep doing the statements, keep repeating inside the loop body until the summation, which is the total summation, is less than or equal to 1 million. So it will keep on doing the summation unless the summation value become 1,000,001, then it will stop the operation. Okay, that's how it works. And then moving on to the for statements. Okay, for for statements is we have the initialization. The initialization here is the component can also include a declaration of the control variables. Okay, so to begin the for statement, we begin it with for, semicolon, the Boolean expression, semicolon, and the increment. And then we include the statements. Okay, let's look at the example here. For the initialization here is letter I. So I equal to 0. And then the Boolean expression. Okay, I less than 20. Okay, that means we will keep this for statement running until the I value is reaching 20. Once it reaches 20, it will stop the for value. Okay, I plus plus. That means it increment the value of I that we begin with I equal to 0, right? Increment I plus plus, that means it will keep on increasing the value of I. Okay, and then we go inside the statement, which is the loop body. Number equal to scanner dot next integer, bracket, sum plus equal to number. So it will keep doing this calculation until the Boolean expression condition is met, which is I less than 20. So when I equal to 19, it will still continue the calculation. But when I equal to 20, it will stop the calculation and it will exit the for statement. Okay, this is for the nested for statement. So nested, we learned earlier about the nested if statement. Okay, this one is for the nested for statement. So for the nesting of for statement inside of another for statement is commonly used. Okay, it is very common for people to use it. So how does it work? Okay, so basically, let's see how can we generate a table using nested for statement. Okay, how can we use a nested for loop in the most appropriate way to generate a table such as in this example? Okay, this is how we can do it. Okay, first we define the integer. Okay, the integer price. And then we define the first for statement. Okay, we define the first for statement that have the value with the initiator. Remember earlier the initialization, which is integer with equal to 11. We start with 11 and then with less than equal to 20 and then with plus plus. So for each value of width, length, so we go inside the for statement. Okay, first we define width and then the length. Okay, the second for statement here, we define the integer length. The initialization for length is 5 and then the length must be less than or equal to 25, length plus equal to 5. Okay, the increment for length value is 5. For example, it begins with 5, the next length value will be 10 and the next length value will be 15, like that. So for each value of width, the length will range from 5 to 25 because it already said here the Boolean expression for length is 25, right? So length will range from 5 to 25 with an increment of 5s. So how it will work is when the width is 11, the length will be 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. And then it will stop. It will stop there because when the length is equal to 25, stop. And then again went back to the outer 4. Okay, the length is the inner 4, and then went back to the outer 4, and then the width is 12 now, and then went back to the inner 4. So the length will be 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, and then it reached the line 25, back to the outer 4, and then the width will be 13, and then go inside the inner 4 again, and then the length will be 5, 10, and so on. It continues until the width is equal to 20, and then it will stop. Okay, then it will generate the table like you see in the previous slide. Okay, that's how we do the nested for. So the most common programming error is when you can read yourself, right? But you have to be careful when you declare your class, and then be careful when you defining the arguments and the parameters. Make sure it's using make sure it's if the numbers in the method and the numbers in parameters must match. Okay, if not it will give you an error. And also you must see the types of the argument and the types of the parameter. Be careful when you defining these two components in your class and in your method. Okay, so that's all for today and for chapter 2. So we are officially done with chapter 2, and actually I have a news to tell you guys that we have updated our teaching plan. So there will be no final project that I told you before that there will be 40% final project. No, there will be no final project. We are just going to do regular final exam, which contribute 40% to your total carry marks. So yeah, that's the final decision. Okay, so the rest of the course assessment is nothing changing. It's just the final project now become a final exam, like regular final exam. Okay, that's all for today, and I will see you during the lab session. Bye.